Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for the latest episode of the Wheel of Time, The Dark Along the Ways. So, I overall enjoyed this episode. We are pretty much barreling towards the end point of this season, so this kind of helps to bring about all that we kind of know at this point and set us up for that kind of final confrontation. Though there were some kind of like weird bits kind of in the middle. Not most of the character stuff I liked, but they kind of made a switch up on Perrin that I'm iffy on, mainly because it's just mainly more like melodrama in there rather than it really adding anything. I don't know. I'm like, all right, we'll have to see like the ramifications that we've got for it, but it's kind of almost an unnecessary change, pretty much exactly with what we got in the first episode with his wife. So let's start off. So we're in the waves, and it's dark and creepy and shit. And Rand is like, we need to go back for Mat. And it's like, well, there's this like black wind thing in here, and it's like drawn to the one power, so I'm not fucking opening that shit up unless we're like leaving this fucking shit. And I'm like, okay. Now, granted, it has been a while, and I've got more of a recollection of what happens towards the end of the series than I do that happens at the beginning of the book series. So I'm like, I don't know if that's kind of how that works with the Machin Shin Black Wind kind of thing going on. But it also then makes it a really fucking bad design flaw to be like, I have to use the one power to open this thing. And it's gonna make this weird dark entity thing that could probably kill us all come and try and eat my ass? Yes. And how the fuck do I get out? By not being a dumbass, I guess. By not being a dumbass, I guess. But they're kind of arguing with that. Most of the cooler heads are like, yo, Mat, he's an asshole. Rand's like, yeah, but he's kind of got all of his people that he's thinking about back home, and if he's the Dragon Reborn, we're kind of going to get fucked over here. I was like, yeah, fine, whatever. We can't open up, so let's keep on trucking. Loial kind of gives us kind of like a background. So the thing is, I understand why they need to kind of do this. It's pretty much that we have characters like expounding exposition about certain things, and I'm not truly against it. I kind of like it, even though it could be done in a little better way, with Loial talking about like how the waves used to be verdant green and everything, and now it's like fucking dark ass hell pit thing. Now, well, not completely a hell pit because there's not like brimstone and fire and shit going on in the background, but it is very foreboding and very like shit. Everything's kind of like crazy and all over the place, and it's just to like juxtaposition the fall that has like occurred within the world of what's going on here. Like I don't understand. Like I don't know how they would like do it in a better way, and I'm like, okay, we kind of need to know this so that way you're like, okay, this is really kind of dark and really kind of crazy, so we kind of need this information. And it makes kind of sense for Loial to do it since he's kind of like the one who has the most information on that kind of stuff, and also will be the one kind of chronicling what's kind of going on with the group for later on purposes. But it's like, yeah, they're kind of going through it. He's like, wait a minute, this is like a guiding kind of stone. We also get a little bit where Lan and Moiraine are kind of talk. It's like, I'm glad they're kind of like following us, but we gotta watch it because it's getting a little bit iffy. But they get to a guiding stone. It looks all kind of like cracked up and everything, like something's going at it. And of course, Lan's like, yep, that's Trollocs. Trollocs in the way. That's how how they kind of got to the two rivers and everything. So like, all right, we're gonna rest and kind of figure out what's kind of going on from here. Loial will now. Granted, there was like a waypoint that they could kind of get to the Eye of the World. That's kind of important because they'd have to go through the Blight, and we also get a glimpse of that as well later on in the episode. But before that, I forgot that this episode started off in a really kind of kick-ass scene with we see actually like 20 years previously where we are in the Aiel War because we see this Aiel warrior pretty much on the Dragon Mountain, and she's pregnant, and she badassly fights these other soldiers with her spears and everything. I'm like, this is a really good action scene because it showcases the fighting styles of the Aiel and this other group of warriors going on and going at it. And she's taken out a lot of people by herself, and this really does cement the Aiel as very good warriors. Like, you get that where you're really told, like, they're great warriors, they're great warriors. John Wick's the boogeyman. When you see them in action, you're like, huh, yeah, everything they said was pretty good for her. And Jesus is doing this pregnant, pretty much going like, ah shit, this kid's coming shit. And then she's still not good enough because she is having contractions, and then she kind of gets stabbed in the back kind of side. It's not exactly where like the baby is, but it's close enough to be like, that's kind of crazy. And so she kind of goes down, and then we see this dude like with their sword on her, and we're like, huh, I wonder what this could be. Granted, if you've read the books, you got a pretty damn good conclusion of what's going to be, but of course the episode does give you it kind of later on. Alright, sorry about that backtrack. That's an important bit because I really fucking like that opening. So they're kind of doing their own thing. We see Rand and Egwene kind of getting kind of closer together. Perrin, of course, watching on further in. They're like, okay, trying to set this shit up. And they're just kind of like waiting a little bit to kind of see what's going on. But then, of course, a trial kind of pops up, and Rand tries to kind of protect Egwene, and we see what we think is that Egwene is using the One Power to throw the Trolloc off. I say appears because we learn that later on in the episode that's not quite the case. Of course, this sets the Black Wind on their ass, and they start going, and Moraine's like, hey, where's the closest kind of place? Faldara? Alright, we go in there. So Loial kind of leads him there, but the thing is, she needs time to do the weaves and everything to open the gate, and she's like, don't listen to the wind, and it's like pretty much preying upon their worst fears and everything, and she's like, don't listen to it, even Moiraine. And this is really kind of cool to see all the different kind of characters. Nynaeve not being able to protect anyone, Moraine's doubts, Egwene's doubts, Perrin as well, Rand being like, she'll leave you and all that kind of shit. But then Nynaeve's like, fuck this, and pretty much puts like a Titan bubble kind of shit thing going on. Destiny 2 reference. She puts like this bubble of protective like one power light that kind of like blasts everything back, that gives Moiraine the chance to open the way, and then they're able to get out because they gotta like be Nynaeve, stop that shit. You gotta like pull your ass out, and she like goes boom, and everybody gets out. It's like, all right, fuck that thing. And then well, granted, I'm gonna paraphrasing in my own kind of way of how Moiraine is, but she kind of gives them a pep talk. She's like, listen, we gotta walk to that place. They'll help us. We good. We'll work this out. Just don't listen to that fucking thing. Alright? So they kind of get in there. They're like, we see, they get in through. We see this, get into pretty much the Lord's kind of place. We see the kind of words being like, hey, it's the Daishan. And, Daishan? I don't know. Sometimes it looked like when they did, because I also turn on like subtitles / closed captioning, because sometimes it's a bitch and a half to try and figure out what some people are saying. And Daishan, referring to the Lan, and it's like, okay, he's big here. And granted, I've read it and I understand like all that kind of stuff, but it's kind of cool how they're able to do it here. And also, I like how their dresses, like how not dresses, but how their clothing are like Eastern influenced, kind of like samurai style and all that kind of stuff. And it's cool because that's kind of, it's not exactly what I envisioned, but it's close enough to be like, yeah, that's pretty cool. And the One-Eyed Dude, again, it's been, I know I remember reading about him in the beginning. I was like, okay, we'll see if we get any of that kind of stuff. So of course our group are brought in front of Lord Egelmar, and he's like thinking, listen, we got all this shit. I know my wife keeps like trying to talk to the White Tower. We got this shit on lock. You don't need to come here and advise me on all that shit. Marine's like, yeah, I'm not here to advise you, dude. I don't give a motherfucking shit. Like, Her ability to provide that nonchalant, like, yeah, I'm not here for that, you fucknut, while in the like politest way possible is just great. She's like, no, 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 I'm not here for that shit, but you might want to block up the ways because Trollocs and shit were like fucking going through there and doing shit, and yeah, and he's like, oh, yeah, all right, that kind of sucks. So they of course kind of settle down and everything. She does talk to Egelmar's wife, and this is an important. I believe it's an important scene because it showcases that she is able to utilize the one power as well, but yet she's not a full Aes Sedai, even though she has like a ring, and that she still is in contact with the White Tower, which shows the other kind of political power that the White Tower has, i.e., that sometimes there are important family members or whatnot within the realms of the world, and that they might not be strong enough in the one power to become full Aes Sedai, but that they still kind of work within everything going on in the world. Pretty much, she was trying to get any kind of information and tell them what she's pretty much learned of what's going on in the ways, and to kind of get a bead on everything going on here. And it's like, yeah, that's pretty cool. I kind of like that. And then she wants to learn where her niece. This is our introduction to Min Farshaw, who is a seer, and she's very important in the series. And I know this is kind of shifted up a little bit, I think, from the books. Not much, but of course, like her introduction was mainly in Baerlon, which we had name dropped earlier in, of course, the series. But she's now here, and I'm like, okay, I'm glad that she's here, and we'll kind of see how that kind of works out. So she's like, all right. Goes down. Everybody's kind of like doing their thing. Some people like going a little bit behind Moiraine and trying to figure out what's going on, and figuring out their kind of like conflicts on all things going on. Well, not conflicts because they're not full on fucking going. Ugh, but we kind of get that in this episode. So she stops by, tries to see what's going on. She of course sees that. The Amyrlin seat's going to be integral to like her downfall and all that. I do like the actress that they got for Min, and it's just weird because of like the age differentials, because I skewed them younger in the books. Here they skewed them older, so that's the only kind of off bit I have. But I do like how they presented her scene stuff, and she's like, all right, tell me what you see with them. Nynaeve sees a ring. Like with Nynaeve, it's a ring. That of course foreshadowing some stuff that book readers will know, stuff with like Lan and all that. Egwene with the white flame, Tar Valon, we've heard that going on here. We see Perrin has yellow eyes and blood down his mouth, and Rand is holding a baby. I don't remember the significance of that though. Like, okay, I do remember that, but she's trying to figure it out. Seeing all this other kind of stuff with Rand, with like the three women and all that kind of stuff. Again, very close to the books and all that, so it's like, all right. And Moraine's like, all right, cool, this is information for me to figure out what's going on. So then she pretty much has a powwow with them and be like, all right. Because they're all trying to figure out what's going on. She's like, listen, why don't you use the dragon? I mean, we pretty much like ruled out Mat. And I don't have a problem with that. They have handled that kind of situation as best as possible. So it's not like it like negatively impacted the story for me or whatnot. And everybody's like freaking out. She's like, listen, if I knew which one of you was the dragon, we just go there and do this shit and get that down. But I don't know which one of you it is. So we're going to have to go all there, and whoever goes there will die, most likely. And Rand's like, I don't want that. And it's funny because he kind of comes off whiny, but it works because he doesn't want his friends to die, and he doesn't want to die either. And that's an important kind of thing, because we get later on Lan's kind of thing and his kind of view as well on what kind of goes on. And Rand, of course, starts hitting back at Egwene, and Perrin's like, stop that shit. And of course that's when it's like, oh shit. Well, Nynaeve points it out and be like, listen, stop fighting over her, pretty much shit. And it's like, oh shit, I've been blind. I should have been able to catch that kind of shit, because you right after Gwen and I got together, you married Layla. And it's like, oh shit. And everybody's like melodramatically exiting, being like, fuck, fuck, fuck. It's like, all right, yeah, this is a big kind of thing. End of the world kind of stuff. Do you do this? And of course, everybody's answers are going to be different. It's like you got four people. Technically, it should have been five, and you're trying to figure out who's going to be the one to defeat the Dark One and make sure the world doesn't get turned to shit. But yet, you will have to die because that battle will be titanic or whatnot. And you'll probably die. It's definitely something to think about, and rightly they act about in the same kind of way that like young adults do. It's like everybody's getting pissed off. Rand's going off, pretty much shooting arrows at some targets and everything. Let's see. Oddly enough, the only two that we don't really check in on are Moraine and Perrin. That becomes important because we're going through on this. So let's do Nynaeve and Lan. Lan pretty much goes off to like last night kind of thing, do his own kind of thing, and he like finds this like group from Malkir, and Nynaeve of course was like tracking and everything. Well, not tracking, but like tailing him and all that. And he's like, "Do you want to come in? Because you can't really call this tracking." And learns some kind of stuff. He's talking to this little girl, being like, "Yeah, I brought you some stuff and everything like that." And we kind of, he's of course called the title again and seen how they're going, and he's like, "Wow, thanks for coming. I'm glad that he's got someone to look after him and everything like that, and be a companion and all that." And it's kind of cool. And he's like, "All right, cool." She's like tried to figure out kind of what the gauge is on the situation, and then she kind of like follows him to his. They like go towards his room, and then he kind of goes in, and then she comes back in, and she's like, "Hey," because you get that kind of sexual tension and everything like that, and he's thinking she's gonna make the first move, and she thinks he's gonna make the first move, and he's just like, "All right, fine," goes in his room. And then you're thinking, all right, he's just gone for that. And then she comes in and she's like, "You want me to leave?" And it's funny because I was watching this with my mom, and she's like, "No, I want you to come." It's like what Lan's thinking. And he just like goes up, and they of course start having sex and all that. It's like, all right. I'm like, yeah, that's the kind of humor my mom and I have. And I was like, yeah, all right, you got good on that. I was just like that far behind her when she did it, and I was like, okay, yeah, that was good. That's definitely the porno version of what was going on here, but it's kind of cool. It's like, all right, we're getting some stuff. Now granted, it does cut away to another portion, but we're just going to kind of go through this. She's kind of getting dressed. She wants to know more about the title, and of course we get everything like we see more of his kind of like Aragorn like capabilities. He's the heir to the Malkir throne. That family was like the guards that had gone in and protected him and took him away as the Blight had encroached and taken down Malkir, and that he owes a lot to Moraine because he had lost everything, and that she gave him something to live for again. And a big kind of thing with him is duty and honor, and like duty is like heavy as a mountain and death is light as a feather, and it's a very kind of fatalistic kind of view of you do what you can, what you are duty bound to do, and death ain't no one thing. Now granted, I don't view death as, I've got my own kind of views on death, but that kind of view on death really heavily informs what kind of goes on with Lan and kind of his teachings that he kind of passes along to Rand, and this kind of thing that keeps going on in his mind as we kind of see his character go throughout the books of him trying to fight that kind of thing of like, he wants to live so desperately, and yet he sees and hears and feels all these kind of things of like, I'm going to have to die, and wanting to do everything in his power to kind of like fight that. And it's understandable. You don't, if you're like told by something or someone or some prophecy, "Yo, bitch, you're gonna get fucking tagged," and you're like, "What if I don't want to?" Tough. well, fuck you. And it's like, granted, that's kind of a sillier kind of way to phrase it and kind of like go in your mind, but it's like a big thing to kind of deal with that. And granted, we don't really get that phrasing specifically here, but we get that kind of idea of why Lan does what he does, of how he kind of views himself. He's trying to do something, trying to protect the world, trying to help Moiraine achieve these goals. So, let's see. And then that's a pretty big thing. It's like, all right, relationship, first step, see how that kind of goes and all that. Then we also see that go to Rand as he's like doing his target practice. Egwene comes to apologize, and he does as well. He's like, listen, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go at you about Mat and everything like that. He understands that there's certain aspects of Mat that aren't good, but that he is still a friend and everything, that what he's kind of gone through, and that he does have good qualities as well, and that he didn't mean to kind of go as hard on Egwene. It's just he can't lose any more people, and that's another thing, that kind of loyalty and that love, that it makes you act like a dumbass and really put you into shitty positions of like, are you grabbing on too hard? Are you being too clingy and too possessive in what you're trying to do and trying to protect people? How do you balance that shit out? That is the kind of thing that is explored in the books, because if you get too possessive and everything, you're going to break and squeeze everything that you're trying to do. If you go too lightly, they'll go off and be a complete and utter dumbass and fucking like, I don't know, try and light a rocket that like blows up everything. That doesn't happen in the books, but that's just an example. Like, hey, I'm a fucking dumbass. I'm gonna blow up a giant rocket. Are you within the blast radius, good sir? Fuck if I know. And your friend is gone. And you're like, I'm sad. But then you must also recognize that your friend was a dumbass that tried to light off a rocket within the blast radius. Balance. So they pretty much get back together and have their own kind of thing going on. And it's like, all right, cool. So a lot of people get post-nut clarity here. Or like, hey, I had sex. My mind's all cleared up. So that kind of becomes important, because we then see towards this end of the episode, things start to accelerate. We see that Rand starts thinking about everything, and we see that the Aiel thing we saw in the beginning comes back here, that he was taking Tam back to the village and was talking about this person and these events, and then we see that it was Tam that was with that Aiel woman who had the sword down, but then instead of like killing her or anything, he helped her deliver the baby, which was a freaky CGI baby. I understand pandemic protocols and everything, because a baby would be really at risk, alright? But the thing is, they could have done a better fake baby, because that CGI baby was freaky as fucking shit, alright? I like this show, I like what they're doing, but holy fucking shit, you spent money on that shit? Oh my god, just, you could have done like, hey, we didn't even see it get birthed, and it's just like, alright, God, and it's like, talking about Rand's birth, and cementing everything that we've seen, and then we see the mother die, and we see that that's kind of how Tam got Rand. Then we also see other things throughout the show. Mainly, we see when the Dark Friend in that town, instead of it just being a Taviran kind of crazy-ass bullshit thing, we see that it was actually Rand channeling. And we see, of course, the weave and, of course, the taint as he blasts through. Then we get shown the ways, and we see that it was not Egwene that had used the one power, it was Rand instinctively doing it to throw the Trolloc off of the Waybridge. And he starts thinking, and as we see, he starts shooting the arrows, and they start hitting their marks, and it's a nice kind of symbolistic thing that, of course, his archery skills, but also him hitting the marks of understanding what he's hitting. He then, of course, goes to Min to be like, listen, tell me if I'm the Dragon Reborn or not. And he kind of doesn't want it, but he's like, I know what it's going on. I know. Like, she's like, it's not really going to change anything what I say otherwise or whatnot. But that, of course, pretty much confirms it for him. We then see that it gets the next day. Egwene pretty much was trying to find Nynaeve to pretty much get everything kind of straight, but she wasn't in her room. pops in like, where were you? Not in your room. Of course, Perrin pops up. It's a little bit awkward, but they're pretty much getting back on the side. And then Lan's like, hey, where's Moraine? He's like, I don't know. Where's Rand? He should be up and everything. And we see that after he figured it out, he's like, I'm the Dragon Reborn. What do we do? And then it's like, all right. Moraine and Rand had decided to go off without telling the others. And they go through the Blight. And we see that it's kind of really kind of different than I envisioned it. It's not bad, but it's kind of like really gray, weird kind of tree roots. We see a kind of human skull in one, and they're like going off to the Eye of the World to fight the Dark One. And I'm fine with how this reveal kind of went. It's really kind of strange because I think they played it more mysterious, kind of shuffling everything around, but I think this reveal worked pretty well in that it kept you on your toes enough, and then you see that Rand figures it out himself. Granted, I think it didn't take until like the actual end of the first book with what was going on at the Eye of the World for that to kind of happen, and for Rand to really access his channeling. So it's kind of different, but I do like that Rand kind of comes to the conclusion himself, understands his kind of destiny, and kind of takes an active role in it. Granted, a little bit different, but not so different that I have that kind of a problem with it. So I'm definitely intrigued to see what's going to be going on, if the others will catch up, and how that'll kind of shake out. It will, and I'm wondering how that's going to shake out and where this season is going to kind of end and how it's going to kind of set up for the next season. So those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good